What up, TCK Potters? Welcome back to the program. Another episode of the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast. This is episode 465. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, sitting with my man, Jay Della, better known as Jordan Della Valley. You can check him out at J Della Valley 7 on Twitter. You can find me at Sky Guasco on Twitter as well. We are going to try to get through the week 4 game recaps and what to look for in week 5. But while we do this live Tuesday night, we have a big-time wild card baseball game happening. And I know it's a faux pas in the fantasy football world to even consider baseball, talk about baseball, like baseball. But Jordan and I are both baseball heads along with fantasy football. We each played in college. You're a Red Sox fan. Red Sox and Yankees are playing right now. I'm a Giants fan, best record in baseball. We get a few more days off, which I'm thrilled about. Quick feelings. Let's keep it to 1 minute or less, or we're going to lose all of our followers. 1 minute or less, man. How are you feeling here? Let's see. I think we're in the third inning or so. You're up 2-0 as we speak.
Yeah, I mean, being up 2-0, quick home run from Bogarts. I mean, you can't be mad at the start so far. Shutting down pretty prolific Yankees offense. So hope to keep it rolling while we're live here.
Best of luck to you, brother. The Commish boys, good friends of the show, obviously. Also Red Sox fans. We know that they're big-time Brady and Patriots fans, but, of course, they're also Red Sox fans. And we made a friendly little wager at the beginning of the season. Who would have the better record throughout the season, Giants or Red Sox? We know the answer to that. Hopefully, for your sake, their sake, and my sake, maybe the Red Sox and Giants could meet in the big dance in a couple of weeks. We will hold that until later, one game at a time. All right, brother, we are jumping into the week 4 game recaps. And, of course, I'm going to break those down for you, and you're going to give me what to look for in week 5 for each of these matchups and teams. We have one more week until bye weeks hit us, Jordan. We're going a little later this year because, of course, now we have the extended game. We have a 17th game, and 18th week, 17th game, so they moved everything up. Usually we start about 4 or 5 on the bye week, so we don't have to worry about it just yet, but we will here pretty soon. So I encourage people to start getting ahead of that with trades or extra quarterback, look ahead on DSTs, whatever you got to do, a streaming tight end, look ahead, beat the waiver wire, as they say. That's very helpful. Shout out to all the listeners streaming in live with us tonight on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter at Fantasy Focus. Make sure to give us a like, subscribe, hit the bell wherever you're watching. It really does help us out, get the word out. Please tell your friends and your family. And, of course, join us Sunday morning for live start sit 3 hours prior to kickoff. We got the entire TCK and Fantasy Focus crew coming at you for 3 hours starting at 10 a.m. Eastern time to 1 p.m. or 7 a.m. West Coast time for me, Jordan, and Bobby. All right, buddy, let's get into this, man. We got a lot of games to cover. We're going to jump right in here and get into the week 4 game recaps and what to watch for in week 5. We're going to start with last night's game and get into the Raiders and Chargers here. Chargers get the win, 28-14. Derek Carr, first game without 380-plus passing yards. He's been absolutely on fire. Early race in the MVP discussion, but the Chargers secondary, man, we've been talking about it for weeks. They are the truth. They've been hurt 2 years in a row. Finally healthy right now. They've been dominating their competition, slowed down the Raiders' potent offense last night. 21 completions, 196 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick for Derek Carr. Easily his worst game statistically throughout the season. Justin Herbert, 7 total touchdowns over his last 2 games. He's been dominant on Monday Night Football so far in his career. Austin Eckler finally exploded for us. 28 half PPR points last night. 15 for 117 and 1 on the ground. 3 for 28 and another touchdown through the air. Josh Jacobs disappointing once again. 13 carries, 40 yards, 5 catches. Just 5 yards, but 5 targets, 5 catches for 17 yards. So you like to see the receptions, but 13 carries for 40 yards. Terrible efficiency. Renfro sticks out for the Raiders, 6 for 45 and 1. Gets a truck stick on the fake punt. If anybody got to see that, that was pretty sweet. The Chargers lined up for a fake punt. Would you love to see some fancy stuff? Lined up for a fake punt, throw the fake punt. Renfro wasn't buying it, came up. Old school Madden truck stick. Stopped him about a yard or 2 short from a big first down. There was a huge point for the Raiders at the point, but the Chargers prevail. Allen and Williams kept in check in this game, 7 for 36 on 11 targets for Allen, 1 for 11 on 4 targets for Williams. it was all Austin Eckler in this game. These guys are going to be just fine. Maybe a buy low opportunity for them. Darren Waller does score a touchdown, but just 4 for 50. Jared Cook and Parnham also score touchdowns for the Chargers. So we thought there would be fireworks, and there were, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and really all of the Raiders offense was kept in check here with the exception of Waller's touchdown. So takeaways here from Monday Night Football with the Raiders and the Chargers.
Yeah, absolutely. My biggest takeaway, I think you're going to hate it, Sky, but it's Josh Jacobs and his usage. I mean, he was coming off of 2 games where he didn't play, missed the last 2 weeks, weren't sure how he felt with the toe, how the Raiders were going to be utilizing him in his first game back. He got 13 of the 15 carries from that running back room in Las Vegas. So yes, it was not efficient, right? Average 3.1 yards per carry, but didn't find the end zone, but was also used in the passing game, like you mentioned, 5 targets, 5 catches. So the yardage is yet to be there, but we mentioned that this was the same Chargers defense that shut down for a good portion comparatively the Dallas Cowboys offense. So moving forward, I'm actually okay with Josh Jacobs' usage, especially in a PPR league. He's going to have so much opportunity. Kenyon Drake at this point doesn't seem to be taking away from any of that volume, right? Whether you believe in the talent or not of Kenyon Drake versus Josh Jacobs, the opportunities and the usage are going all Jacobs' way.
It's so silly. I tweeted out during the game, and I got absolutely destroyed on Twitter, which is fine because I stand by my takes. I'm not a hot take guy. I truly believe what I say on social media. And my tweet was simply a reminder that the Raiders spent $14.5 million on Kenyon Drake this year for 2 years, $11 million guaranteed to a third-string running back that they chose in free agency to bring in. I liked the signing, but then they bring in Peyton Barber, give him the run last week when Jacobs was out. Drake is not even the pass catching back last night, right? So
no targets, no
what
catches,
are they
nothing.
doing? What are they doing? Josh Jacobs, look, I've been a Josh Jacobs fader for all season, right? Miles Sanders as well, and I missed on Swift, but I stand on where I was at the time with the groin injury. But Josh Jacobs is still terribly inefficient. Yes, he might fall in for a touchdown. I don't want to play a guy that might fall in for a touchdown and has 2 yards per carry or something, like 2.5, 3 yards per carry. I'm not into that.
Last week, yeah.
Okay, so the usage is there. Yeah. I'm just not very excited. And then Kenyon Drake is somebody I thought you could get like Jamal Williams, who might actually have more efficiency, which he does. They're just not using him. Baffling in Las Vegas there. So very interesting. If you want to stick it out for Josh Jacobs, go ahead. But as you all know, that's not my cup of tea. So we'll see what happens moving forward. I like to see him healthy. That's good news for fantasy football and the Raiders, but I just can't trust John Gruden, unfortunately. All right, let's dial it back here to Sunday Night Football, and then we'll get into the Sunday slate. So, of course, this is the game of the century, really, in regular season terms. Brady returns to Foxborough. This was a much closer game than anybody anticipated. The Buccaneers squeak away with a win here, Jordan. And if you watch the game, Folk missed a 56-yarder that would have probably won the game. Brady would have got the ball back and, could have pulled a Brady and won it out, but they would have had the lead, at least the Patriots did, and he missed it. But nonetheless, they had a chance to win this game here. Mac Jones really impressed, in my opinion. 275 and 2. All the talk was about Brady, obviously, but the amount of pressure that kid had to follow up Brady and will have his entire career to live in the shadow of Tom Brady, I thought he played really well in this game. Tom Brady didn't do much in this game, to be honest. Everybody had him as DFS. We had him for 405 touchdowns. Nothing close. Leonard Fournette, 20 touches, 130 total yards. Mike Evans, the lead receiver this week. It seems to be roulette every week. 7 for 75 here. And for the Patriots, not much to talk about elsewhere here. Both defenses played pretty well. So takeaways from the Sunday night game here between the Bucs and the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest takeaway, I think, for the Bucs, you can kind of throw this game out. I mean, you're moving forward with what that offense is. The weapons that they have in Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Brady. Obviously, Fournette's now going to be the back over Rojo. But really what I took away from this Patriots offense is really the receiving work, especially in a matchup where, I mean, they ran the ball 8 times in this game against that Tampa Bay. One of them was Mac Jones. So 7 running back carries. That's
smart,
not
really.
The Patriots. Yeah, I mean, that's the game plan that almost everyone's been going with against Tampa Bay. obviously Damian Harris will be fine moving forward in better matchups where they'll be running the ball more. But when Mac Jones does have to throw, he's not throwing the ball downfield, right? Again, this is a very good pass rush defense in Tampa Bay, and so Mac was probably looking to get the ball out soon. But yards per attempt in this game under 7. He's really looking for those short routes. Jacoby Myers, and now Brandon Bolden with James White being out. We kind of had the questions: is it going to be J.J. Taylor? He fumbles in this game and is probably done. And so, at least with this small sample size, we can look towards Brandon Bolden moving forward in a pinch in a PPR league, maybe in a good matchup where you expect the Patriots to be throwing a lot and dumping off a lot. I expect Brandon Bolden to be that receiving guy. Nelson Aguilar last year had a great year with the Raiders, but most of that was almost in the Ruggs type role with deep threats where he's not going to be really getting those looks, I don't think, in this Patriots offense.
Right. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Patriots actually do in the running game here. I don't really trust anybody. Damian Harris is somebody I've been playing all season so far, but obviously put up a dud last week because they just didn't use him. It's all game script and matchups because Bill doesn't mess around. Bill's not going to say the Bucs are very good at run defense and run into a brick wall all night. He just won't do that. He'll avoid it. So dud last week, but I won't want to play those guys until bye weeks when I have to, just because I don't know who it's going to be. There's just so many heads always in New England, and Antonio Brown could have had a much bigger game in this one as well. You could say he dropped a touchdown. It was a tough throw, tough catch, diving in the back of the end zone, whatever. We've seen him make it before, but he missed this one, so it could have been a bigger game for him and Brady. But without Gronk, there was clearly a hole there for the Buccaneers. Okay, let's dial it back to Sunday morning, and we'll get into the Sunday games here. Lions and Bears. Bears get the win 24-14. David Montgomery, 106 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he gets injured in this game. He does avoid a torn ACL, which is obviously very good news, but the early report is he'll be out at least 4 weeks, maybe 4 to 6. You will be able to put him on IR. I would recommend you do that. Do not drop David Montgomery. If you are in a dynasty league or something, obviously you can stash him, or you can go out and try to pick him up if you can. He has been absolutely fantastic this season. Just an unfortunate injury here that's going to put him out a month, which is too bad. He was playing very well here. Darnell Mooney, the clear number 1 here in Chicago. God damn it, dude. What the hell are we doing? Darnell Mooney, my man. I've been repping Darnell Mooney all offseason, so I'm pumped on this call. But this goes to just completely bury my man, Allen Robinson, who I was trying to stand up for this week and all offseason. It's not happening. 5 catches, 125 for Darnell Mooney. He has outpaced targets, receptions, and yardage for Allen Robinson this year. Allen Robinson has 1 touchdown. Darnell Mooney has none. Otherwise, Darnell Mooney has completely faded out Allen Robinson. We'll see if Andy Dalton or Justin Fields start this week. Matt Nagy's an absolute trickster here with fantasy football concerns. Justin Fields does get his first W, so good for him. And then the running backs for the Lions held in check this week. Not much doing here for the Lions. It's going to be all second half garbage time for this team for the most part. Hawkinson had a big week a couple weeks ago, but pretty much held in check. Bears played well on defense, divisional game. These are usually pretty close. So thoughts on the Lions and Bears?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Hawkinson with the big game last week. Obviously, both touchdowns this week for the Lions go to who we all expected it to go to, Khalif Raymond. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but I mean, moving forward, this is like we should expect obviously DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, and TJ Hawkinson to continue to be the guys for that Lions offense. For the Bears, I mean, this is one where I don't know what to do with Darnell Mooney or Allen Robinson, right? Because it seems like when Justin Fields is in, you mentioned it, that Darnell Mooney's the guy. The question is, like, when Andy Dalton comes back and fully healthy, we've obviously had less of a sample size with those two, but Allen Robinson year in and year out has proven to be a top option for wide receiver fantasy football. And so for him to fall off this drastically would be wild. I see the argument for a buy low. I also see the argument for selling and moving on. If you have him on your team, I feel like you can't trade him. I have him on, unfortunately, multiple, and I feel like I don't get what I need back from him. And so I'm kind of stuck with him on my bench, honestly. I can't start him, and I can't trade him. I guess the real interesting, like, as we get into the bye weeks and trade season of fantasy football is, let's say that you're the 4-0 or the 3-1 team, Sky, and you are, maybe you drafted Raheem Mostert or you have Christian McCaffrey, something like that. Do you want to go out and buy David Montgomery if you think you can make it through these 4 or 5 weeks that he's likely to be out, and hope that he comes back at the 100%? I mean, he's clearly gotten a hold, and when he is healthy, on that Bears backfield, and will always have the opportunity to have this 102 game where he even came out early because of that injury.
Yeah, in theory, I think that sounds great, because if I fast forward a month from now, then I have hopefully Christian McCaffrey healthy and David Montgomery. The problem is, Jordan, even if I'm 4-0 on my team, I'm out. You mentioned Raheem Mostert, right? So let's just say
Sure.
hypothetically you had Mostert and McCaffrey. Both those guys are out right now. So first of all, if you're winning games without those guys, your team's stacked. But in this case, whatever, let's say 3-1, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Above 500. The problem is you have to wait out McCaffrey and you have to wait out David Montgomery. Those to me are concerns. I'm not as excited. Oh God, go Sox, dude. I'm feeling it for you, brother. So I would love to wait that out. The problem is you have to wait out a month and then hope McCaffrey's healthy too, and still have to keep winning games. Because the problem is, even though he's injured, you're going to have to give up something valuable for David Montgomery, probably a running back, right? Or a top end wide receiver. So that's going to be tough there. So yes, in theory, I would love to do that. I just don't know that you're going to actually be able to, unfortunately. And you mentioned it earlier. Yeah. Allen Robinson, I tend to want to hold on because I just know the talent and whatever. But if you're going to get rid of him, like, for what?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, this sounds ridiculous. I mentioned it kind of tongue in cheek on Instagram earlier in my post about Darnell Mooney, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, it kind of makes sense. I might straight up try to trade Allen Robinson for Darnell Mooney. I'm not kidding. I think that's probably the move, unfortunately, because we see it all the time. I've mentioned this for years on the podcast. You have second string quarterbacks, which Justin Fields is, right? Second string quarterbacks run with the second team guys. That's Darnell Mooney. It's not Allen Robinson. So sometimes you get an injury and you have another guy come in. You're like, why is he thrown to the fourth string wide receiver? Like, what the hell is this? And it's like, that's the practice guy that they play with. They don't play with the ones. So a lot of times you see that happen, and you just got to kind of read the tea leaves there. So Darnell Mooney, as of right now, looks to be that guy, and he's already outpaced Allen Robinson throughout the season. Okay, let's move on here to Washington and Atlanta. Washington gets the win. This is a close game. It's a fun one to watch here. 34-30. Football team gets the dub. Terry McLaurin, another big game, 6 for 123 and 2 touchdowns. One of them was a grown man touchdown. It was pretty impressive. Heineke just kind of threw one up in the back of the end zone, and McLaurin basically shrugged off the defender who was all over him, ripped through a pass interference, and just snagged it out of the air. It was kind of a Julio Jones-esque grab, which is impressive. Heineke, to his credit, 290 and 3. A quarterback number 5 on the week, Jordan, doing really well if you picked him up as a streamer. Cordero Patterson, 3 receiving touchdowns. The question is he a must start? What do you do with Mike Davis, Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts? Getting the work, but not quite getting the production, still yet to score. And then Matt Ryan looked a lot better in this one. Antonio Gibson kind of falling by the wayside to J.D. McKissick once again here. So I want to get your thoughts on this. And then we do have a question here in the chat room regarding a start sit with Cordero Patterson. We'll get to in a second, but thoughts on Washington and Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, with this Atlanta offense, at least we're starting to see. I mean, they did play obviously not the best defense, despite what we thought in Washington. They're starting to come around. They're starting to click a little bit, right? They struggled week 1 against Philly. For what reason, I have no idea. Chiefs destroyed us. But the Atlanta offense is starting to come around. And so the question now is essentially that Cordell Patterson is he going to continue this usage? They've been using him in high leverage situations, high opportunity situations, obviously gets the 3 touchdowns. He's involved as the Falcons get closer to the end zone, which is, for fantasy, obviously what you want. You want your guy, if he's going to be used closer or further from the end zone, I want my guy being used close to the end zone. The question is this touchdown pace going to continue for Patterson? I think a lot of defenses are obviously keying in on Ridley and Pitts. I don't think Pitts has scored yet this season off the top of my head. Ridley might have one. But certainly I don't think that pace for either of them is going to continue. I think those two are going to start to find the end zone and chip away at Patterson's touchdowns here. Now, he might not have these three receiving touchdown blow-up weeks, but Mike Davis's snaps week over week have been trending down, his snap usage. And so Patterson is being used more and more. And the preseason hype on Mike Davis was because of the opportunity and how he was going to be the only back in that Atlanta offense. And now that's starting to be more of a 50-50 split. And Patterson is getting the more the higher value snaps from that backfield. So is he a must start moving forward? I wouldn't say must start, but certainly a decent RB2 option if he's able to flex into that RB slot in your fantasy format.
Absolutely. And a big reason I didn't draft Mike Davis and faded him all summer was because I just didn't believe that he was going to be the full-on bell cow. And sure enough, they brought in somebody. Now, I didn't expect it to be their kick returner, but I expected them to bring in somebody. And sure enough, they brought in Cordero Patterson, who, look, I've been thinking about it this way, because when you look at Cordero Patterson, you see number 84 in the backfield. You're kind of like, it's like Ty Montgomery with the Packers over the years, right? Like number 88 taking a carry. You're like, okay.
Feels very gimmicky.
You're like, yeah, sure. You're like, all right, dude, you guys fast, get him in space, whatever. But if you just in your mind put Cordero Patterson in like number 23 or something, right? 31, like give him a running back number. The dude's the truth. And he's a wide receiver, right? So he lined up, he caught one of the touchdowns as a wide receiver and as a running back. He's just a very good in space. So he's going to keep that role there. And I think if anything, sell high, but I would just ride it out personally, because that offense right now is going through him. And I also believe that Ridley and Pitts will eventually get theirs. We do have a question I want to get to here. B-Dubs on Twitch. Should I start Patterson over CEH at Buffalo? CEH at Buffalo, Patterson playing the Jets. Now, this one's tough. Now, 2 weeks ago, everybody was panicking on CEH. We're going to get to the Chiefs game here in a little bit, but everyone was panicking on CEH, right? Like, oh, what's he going to do? They never give him the ball in the red zone, blah, blah, blah. He's had 2 really solid games, over 100 yards, scoring touchdowns. He is what we want him to be. But Patterson now, in my opinion, is that offense for the Atlanta Falcons. Do you ride the better offense with the Chiefs, but more weapons? Or do you ride the guy who just exploded and seems to be the number one option in Atlanta this week?
Can you start them both? I mean, who's the other option here? I mean, the tough part is that
I'd imagine, and I don't mean to cut you off. I'd imagine, though, that CEH is like a 3rd-round pick this year. Cordero Patterson might have been a waiver wire scoop, right? Yeah. So I would imagine they have a top end, I'm going to start them running back. And this is probably a flex unless they went 0 RB.
Yeah, I mean, that's the context here is tough, because if it is you play one of these and you have to sit the other, and the options above these two are all better, and so you're definitely going with one of these. I mean, it's hard to sit CEH. I mean, especially coming off of these 2 hot weeks. But Buffalo's defense, man, is real, and that is a tough matchup. Patterson is, I think Atlanta's going to have a day against New York. If they're up early, the Patterson will get probably the rush yard or the rush attempts. And again, they're going to be using them near the goal line, which I think they're going to be often against the Jets. I think Patterson's going to be more of your high risk, high reward. CEH might be your safer play. Me personally, I'd probably go with CEH though.
Okay. Let's move on here. We got the Texans and those Bills. This one was over before it started here. The Bills have really turned it on. They had kind of a slow start. Got a dud versus the Steelers at home week 1, and then have turned it around since. Second straight game for the Bills defense, not giving up a point. They've been absolutely dominant here. Stephon Diggs gets on track as well. 7 catches, 114 yards. We knew that was coming. He was my buy low candidate yesterday on the trade talks with our girl Kelly Singh of the Commish Fantasy Football Podcast. You can dial it back one time. Bobby, Kelly, and I talked about a half hour on trade targets and stuff, so you guys can check out that episode if you'd like to for some options. And Josh Allen, man, not exploding for yardage, but very efficient, 248 and 2. Texans, none doing here. That secondary, Trey White and company for the Bills is the truth. Shut down Brandon Cooks and everybody else on this offense here, so you could just throw it out for him. I think you got to start him as a wide receiver 3 or flex moving forward, but the Bills are just fine. Look, Zach Moss, man, going to get the work late They've had 2 games in a row where the entire fourth quarter is basically Mitch Trubisky and the run game, right? So if they're able to do that to most opponents, now I don't see them doing that to the Chiefs, but if they do it to most opponents, then you can start these running backs. Which running back do you feel more comfortable with moving forward? And is there anybody on the Texans, including at this point Brandon Cooks, that's a surefire start every week?
Yeah, moving forward, I mean, I am more confident in Moss. I mean, these last 2 weeks for Buffalo, it's been pretty much a 50-50 split with him and Singletary. But Moss is more involved in the pass game. Moss is more involved as they get closer to the goal line. And so if I'm looking for either the floor of potential receptions and passing work from my running back, that's Zach Moss. If I'm looking for the touchdown upside, outside of Devin Singletary breaking off like a long 40-yard touchdown run, which has he ever? I don't know. I'm more comfortable with Moss moving forward. And the other piece of this Buffalo offense that probably, like, obviously you're starting Diggs, you're starting Allen if you have them, but Dawson Knox again had a great week this week. 2 touchdowns on 5 catches. Last week scored on 5 targets as well. So Dawson Knox, especially if you don't have the Travis Kelce's, the Darren Wallers, Knox should be pretty highly involved in this offense moving forward. And then to your question of who do I want on this Bills offense? I mean,
Texans.
Texans. I'm fine with Cooks, obviously. Cooks is great. But, I mean, outside of Cooks, pretty much no one.
Yeah, I agree. I'll throw out another, a deeper waiver pickup at this point if you have them in deeper leagues, or just, as bye weeks come up, you can also look at Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley, because the volume in most games will be there. They just straight up didn't really have to keep going against the Texans because they weren't putting up a fight. But a game with the Chiefs should be a shootout both ways. So I would expect both those guys to have a nice game next week. All right, let's move on here to the Panthers and the Cowboys. Cowboys get the win, knock off the Panthers, who were previously 3-0. This was kind of a which team is for real on both ends. Cowboys defense is the truth. I've been very impressed with this defense here. Zeke, 20 carries, 143 yards, and a touchdown. DJ Moore, the clear number 1 for Carolina, 8 for 113 and 2 touchdowns. Sam Darnold, 2 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. He has 5 rushing touchdowns on the season here, Jordan. It's been super fun. And CeeDee Lamb held in check. Amari Cooper, 35-yard touchdown here. And again, no Christian McCaffrey. So, Hubbard got some work, but obviously not Christian McCaffrey. Robbie Anderson, another dud game here. So no real surprises here for the Cowboys. They take care of business. Do you think this keeps up for Sam Darnold? Because obviously he's not going to, 4 touchdowns a week is just insane for him right now. But this offense is the truth. They don't even have their best player right now. And the Cowboys defense is no, walk in the park here. So do you believe in Sam Darnold long-term, and thoughts on the Panthers and Cowboys overall in this game?
Yeah, I do. I have to, almost, because of, yes, 4 games is a small sample size, but we have a long history of quarterbacks and other NFL players who, after playing for Adam Gase, seem to just take off. And in these first 4 games, Sam Darnold is just another one of them. Yes, the rush touchdowns probably won't be there, especially as Christian McCaffrey comes back and is fully healthy. I wouldn't expect Darnold to be putting up this rush touchdown week in and week out. But like you mentioned, 28 points against this Dallas defense. If the Carolina Panthers are going to be that close and putting up that many points, your quarterback's going to be involved. He's the first one to get the ball, so he's either going to be passing it, potentially running it, and scrambling. For me, the real question and what to look for here next week is Robbie Anderson. He had the terrible 3 first weeks. Obviously, expected more out of him. Is the wide receiver 2 for this team, or presumed to. Also, the history with Darnold back from New York, but puts up a decent game here on 5 catches. And next week plays my beloved Eagles and their fantastic defense, obviously. If he has a great game next week, if he scores, a long touchdown, let's call it 5 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown, if that's his exact stat line, rewinding and playing that back, you might be able to move him off of these these last 2 weeks.
And I would.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you touched on the Dallas offense earlier, but I mean, they're extremely efficient. They're going to be scoring a lot. The defense is going to be creating turnovers in short fields. So if you have Dallas options, I mean, start them. The one, I guess, question mark is Tony Pollard. Like, can you flex him? Yes, but I probably wouldn't be playing him as my RB2.
It's interesting too, because like the Dallas of last year, I know it was just 4 games or 5 games, whatever, with Dak before he got hurt,
Yep.
but they were run and gun, dude. Their defense was terrible, right? So they were having to put up 45 points a game, which they were, but they were just throwing it. Their defense is so much more improved. They don't have to. So they're actually playing Mike McCarthy football, which is pass when you needed to, but run it as well. And that's Zeke ball as well. So I think, when you're looking at shootouts, obviously you're more excited about, maybe Tony Pollard at the end of the game, but otherwise it's clearly still, Zeke's backfield. So let's slow down on the whole Pollard is better than Zeke nonsense. Pollard is going to be in there. He's explosive. He's going to have a couple big plays. He's going to score some touchdowns, have some good fantasy work, but let's slow down on that a little bit. If you're looking for the new hotness of Sam Darnold or any of those Cowboy jerseys, make sure you go over to the Jersey Jungle on Instagram at the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK to receive 10% off of 1 or 2 jerseys, 15% off of 3+ jerseys. These are already at half the price. You're going to find them on NFL.com. I have many of the jerseys behind me right now. I have Devontae Adams and Justin Herbert. For those of you not on YouTube that can't see me on the podcast side, I have been repping recently Nick Chubb. I have Alvin Kamara. I've got some baseball jerseys as well. Make sure you go check them out. The Jersey Jungle, authentic game-ready jerseys, stitch and twill. These are not the cheap ones that rub off in the dryer. These are high-quality stitch and twill jerseys. Any sport, basketball, hockey, football, baseball, college as well. Rookies are in. Go check them out on Instagram at the Jersey Jungle. Use the promo code TCK to get 10% off of your jerseys. And they're already half of what you get them on NFL.com. You start at about $60. Use that promo code, you get them less. High quality jerseys. Go check them out. My man Trenton will take care of you, and you can get yourself a jersey and call your shot. Jordan, I've asked you many times, but we're a month into the season. Has anything changed? Who is one jersey you're hoping to have on your wall behind you soon?
Well, now I got to get myself a Hurts jersey. I mean, early on, it was one I stayed away from. I was never sure. It seemed to be a rotating quarterback room. I was glad I never invested in a Wentz jersey as we're about to go to the Colts game. But yeah, I mean, Hurts seems to be that guy, and so would love to obviously have his jersey.
One of your crazy calls, bold predictions early, right before we kicked off, was Hurts would be the number 1 QB. At the time, it sounded a little bit crazy, but he is number 3 as of today. So he is on the charts. Well done there, my man. Let's move on here to the Carson Wentz Colts, who get the W over the Dolphins here without Tua once again. 27-17. Colts get the big dub here. Jonathan Taylor, 103 yards and a touchdown. We'd love to see that. He played very well. Devontae Parker, 4 catches, 77 yards and a touchdown. Myles Gaskin, gone. I've been saying this since we started. It was him. It was Mike Davis. It was a lot of these middling running backs that RB dead zone. We're seeing a lot of them disappear at this point. Unfortunately, Myles Gaskin is another one of those guys. Malcolm Brown is too involved here. Will Fuller gets injured once again, set to miss some time. I'm not interested in Will Fuller at all. I do like Waddle. I do like Gesicki moving forward. Hines, you play every other week. He seems to kind of go hit or miss there. And then Michael Pittman, I think, is still a good wide receiver 3 flex option with big and, boom or bust weeks, more or less. And sneak attack here, I'm not interested personally, and I just don't need him on any of my teams. But T.Y. Hilton may come back in the second half of the season. As bye weeks come up, you might want to stash him on a deeper bench if you're able to, or put him on IR while you can. Thoughts on the Colts and Dolphins?
Yeah, I mean, what was really interesting to me about this game was actually Marlon Mack. So before this game, news came out that Marlon Mack had requested a trade, and Colts were actually looking to shop him and move him in a trade.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hadn't been used early on in the game or in the season, and this was almost like it kind of felt like the Colts. Yeah, it almost felt like the Colts were like, "Oh, we need to trade you. Well, we got to show other teams what he can do.
Shanahan, look what he can do.
Gets 10 carries for 22 yards. Not the best showing.
Terrible.
But, I mean, you do think back to Marlon Mack before the Achilles injury. I mean, he was pretty good for this Colts offense. I mean, depending on the landing spot, if you want to stash him, depending on how deep your bench is or what other options are, who you currently have at running back, I'd be okay at least taking the speculative ad. I mean, let's throw out a hypothetical name like Marlon Mack. Are you going to stash like Quez Watkins? Like, I'd be fine dropping Quez to take the shot that Marlon Mack ends up in San Francisco or somewhere else.
Still Baltimore, Atlanta. I mean, Miami even. I mean, there's a handful of teams that could use a kickstart.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was my biggest takeaway from the Colts. I mean, you mentioned T.Y. Hilton potentially coming back. I don't think he immediately becomes the one. I think, if anything, he just becomes a pain in Pittman and maybe Pascal and their fantasy production. For the Dolphins, I mean, yeah, Gesicki and Waddle seem to be your only options. They're going to be passing a lot, especially while Tua is out. In a PPR league, those are going to be your top two targets. I mean, Gesicki, I think, had like 0 catches through the first half of this game, maybe even longer. And so putting up 5 for 57 and a touchdown in the last half of this game, especially at the tight end position, is something that you could rely on.
Tua set to come back hopefully in week 6. So we're going to have one more week of Jacoby Brissett here. We have another question here that I want to get to as we get to these players. Quickly, Jordan, drop Nyheim Hines for J.D. McKissic, ? I personally would.
I see. For me, it's tough. I mean, they almost feel like the same guy. I mean, I think McKissic is probably slightly more likely to be involved in the Washington offense than Hines is in Indianapolis. So for that reason, I would drop him, drop Hines for McKissic.
Yep.
But in terms of usage and production, they so far seem to be the same guy.
I agree. And Beach, if you can find somebody, well, I guess, you got an extra note here, or Latavius Murray. Would you pick up McKissic or Latavius Murray? Honestly, I know Murray's getting some work with Baltimore. It's a mess, and it's Lamar Jackson. Rashad Bateman's about to come back in. I'm not interested in Latavius Murray here. So I would drop Hines for McKissic personally, and this is half PPR. So I like that. I also had another comment down here. Jordan wants a Dak Prescott jersey. I don't think he does. Fighting fire there. And then another Colts question, and we'll move on. Is a Kareem Hunt for Jonathan Taylor trade fair? Now, fair is always relative in trades, in my opinion. Now, if you were to say, like, is Derrick Henry for Kareem Hunt fair, then obviously that's stretching it. But, Jonathan Taylor's had good games. He's had bad games. Kareem Hunt right now is the better fantasy back in Cleveland. But, of course, Nick Chubb is still there. So is it fair? Absolutely. I think it's always fair in trades for the most part. Would I do Kareem Hunt for Jonathan Taylor? I'd probably stick with Hunt right now, believe it or not.
Interesting. I'd go with Taylor just because my biggest concern with Taylor was Quentin Nelson being out and injured, and but obviously against Miami, Taylor was fine. He might have the up and down, but so will every fantasy running back.
Okay, fair enough. Moving on here. Let's talk about Kareem Hunt and those Browns. Browns take on the Vikings. The Browns escape here 14-7. Expected a lot more points in this game. You have Justin Jefferson had 6 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Nick Chubb, 21 carries and 100 yards. Still feels like a disappointment because he doesn't get those catches or a touchdown. But the usage, ladies and gentlemen, is unbelievable for Nick Chubb. Keep riding Nick Chubb unless you can move up. Do not trade Nick Chubb to go lateral or down. Nick Chubb is the man. He will be just fine. Kareem Hunt, though, seeing a lot of action, gets the touchdown, gets the receptions. He is number 7 in PPR leagues. Nick Chubb is number 12. They're both RB1s right now. Ride the waves. You're going to be just fine. Nick Chubb gets that touchdown and Kareem Hunt doesn't. We're not even having the conversation. So ride it out. Baker Mayfield concerns me here. We've been talking about it for years. I don't want to get too into it because I know a lot of it's hyperbole, Jordan, but there is something weird with this Odell Beckham, Baker Mayfield thing. They're not on the same page, no matter how you slice it. I've been an OBJ guy. I threw up the O a bunch because my Ducks let me down last week with no offensive coordinator, which I don't want to get into. but they dropped the ball. So I had to throw up the O for Odell Beckham Sunday morning instead. And I was very confident about that decision. Unfortunately, Baker Mayfield's not able to connect with him. We saw it on the last play of the game, essentially, that could have iced it for the Browns. They end up getting the win, but this would have put the dagger in, and OBJ was literally wide open. Baker sets up, no pressure, launches it right over his head, and they couldn't get connected. And Jarvis Landry is still out. That's a big question mark for me. Dalvin Cook had a dud game, wasn't 100%. Obviously, he'll be just fine. Go buy low if you possibly can. I picked him up in Dynasty earlier this morning. Vikings are going to be just fine. Not worried about them. Are you concerned about OBJ, or do you think he's looked great personally? Do you think he'll be fine and be able to get through it here in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think if this were a one-game thing where we see that one pass, and for those who didn't see it, it was probably going to be like I think it was a 60-yard touchdown or something like that. They were on their own 40 or pretty close to it. And so a lot of times people like to play if you take out Saquon's 140-yard rush, what if you put in Odell's 160-yard touchdown catch, right? He goes from 2 for 27 in a very disappointing fantasy day for like 3 for 85 and a touchdown, better than Amari Cooper was this week in Dallas, right? So it's easy to play the what-if game of taking it away, but we can also play it the other way. And so it's hard to say that Odell's going to be fine because this has now been 2 years. Like, this isn't like his first time playing with Baker Mayfield. He's played, practiced, like has been with Baker Mayfield for years and should have that connection developed by now. Am I going to overreact to one throw? No, but this has been a while that these two should be together and on the same page. Am I concerned about Odell? No, because I wasn't expecting him to be that wide receiver one that we saw back in New York with Eli Manning. But am I going to be able to ever expect that from him this season? No.
Fair enough. Let's move on here to the Giants and the Saints. The Giants and the Saints here, 27-21. The Giants get a big win here. Bobby's fired up here for his Giants. Get the big win. Really a huge upset, I think, in overtime here. 27-21. Daniel Jones, 400 passing yards, leads the NFL this week in passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Saquon is Saquon. The wait is over. He looks great running, passing, or receiving, I should say. 2 touchdowns for him. Alvin Kamara, career high in 26 carries, 120 yards, no receptions, no targets. First time in his career. That is something to talk about. Kenny Golladay, 6 for 116. How do we feel about the Giants and the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest concern with this game, especially from the Saints side, was Alvin Kamara. I mean, this is you mentioned a career high in targets or carries, career low in targets. But it wasn't just this game, right? If we look back and how the Saints have been using him so far this year, he's had 3 of the 4 games where he had 20 plus carries. And I might be misquoting this stat, but I'm pretty sure he had like 3 or less of those games in his career up to this point. And I'd be all for getting Alvin Kamara the ball more often and giving him more carries, but not when it means taking away from his targets. Like, we like to say in the fantasy community that Gibson was a receiver in college and Gibson should be getting more receptions. Like, Gibson is Kamara light. Like, you have to be involving Kamara in this pass game for the Saints, especially when Jameis is struggling, not, in that Bruce Arians just chuck it deep offense. No
risk it, no biscuit, baby.
Don't know why the Saints offense, I don't know if they're scheming to not get targets to Kamara and they're trying to look elsewhere. I don't know why you would, or if it's just that defenses are taking it away. But that's the most concerning thing to me is Alvin Kamara is starting to be used more as a Nick Chubb-esque rather than, a Christian McCaffrey type of usage. From the Giants side, I mean, this was a unexpected game from them from a fantasy perspective. I mean, the Saints defense is one of the best defenses in the league, I think. Jones comes out here, puts up 400 yards, Golladay with over 100. I mean, even as much as I thought it was a terrible draft pick, Kadarius Toney did okay. In a game without Shepard and Slayton, had 9 targets, actually led the Giants in targets. Golladay with only 7. So moving forward, I mean, I don't think Toney will necessarily be as involved, obviously, once Shepard and Slayton are back. But if he's able to establish himself in this offense in these next couple of weeks and moving forward, could be an interesting play for DFS, if not for a stash in redraft or keeper.
I absolutely agree. And Michael Thomas may or may not come back in the next couple of weeks. Keep your eye on that. Stash him in IR as well. And also, look, I mean, Taysom Hill doesn't go away, right? He had 2 rushing touchdowns in this one.
Yeah.
Those could have been Alvin Kamara's. So frustrating there, but that's the Taysom Hill deal. We do have a question down here from Mr. Jones 48 on Twitch. I want to address this quickly. Are y'all live every Sunday morning on Twitch? We are. We stream every Sunday morning on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So we are live on Twitch every Sunday morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. West Coast, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. East Coast. That being said, if you'd like to get in our super chat function, which helps you jump the line for our hundreds of questions, literally, that we get every Sunday, if you'd like to be in the super chat function, that is through YouTube specifically. So we've had some people ask that. You would need to go to YouTube. If you have a Gmail account, then you can easily set up a YouTube account. It comes with your Gmail account. So that's easy. You can set that up. View us on YouTube, comment there, and you can use the super chat function. If you don't have YouTube or you don't want to do YouTube and you're on Twitch, for example, Mr. Jones, then you can actually hit us up on Venmo as well. And you can send in a contribution, even $1, $2, $20, whatever your contribution would be for your questions at TCK Pod, TCKPOD, TCK Pod on Venmo. You can drop us a contribution there as well. We monitor that in real time. As soon as we get your contribution with your question, we will go ahead and get that to you. And every once in a while, we also have giveaways for some TCK merch. We also have contributions to charities as well, if you'd like to be a part of that. So great question, Mr. Jones. I appreciate you asking. We are live on Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter every Sunday morning for 3 hours of start sit. But the super chat function that helps you jump the line with your questions is on YouTube specifically or via Venmo. So feel free to hit us up there. I appreciate you asking, though. It's a great question. I'm sure many others also had it. Let's move on down here to the Titans and the Jets. Another overtime game here. Another New York, quote unquote, New Jersey win here for the Jets. Get off the schneid 27-24. Upset of the week easily this week here. We all thought it was going to be Derrick Henry for 800 yards in this one. He has a measly 157 on 33 carries. We all predicted about 300 here and a touchdown. Corey Davis, 4 for 111 and a touchdown, a big touchdown at the end of the game there. Zach Wilson gets his first win. Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, both out in this game. Ryan Tannehill not able to get it done with Josh Reynolds leading the storm there. So kind of a throwout game for the Titans because they just didn't have their weapons. Great performance from the Jets, but I wouldn't get too excited here. Titans defense just isn't cutting it either. So Corey Davis, I think, is the real deal. We know that Bill shut him down. Tre'Davious White shut him down. But Corey Davis is a nice start. You know what's up with the Titans. If they play, you play them. Any big takeaways from this game, or is just kind of a rinse out?
Yeah, mostly a rinse out. I think the one name to look at here from this game is on the Jets side, Michael Carter, rookie running back out of North Carolina. Was not involved as much in the offense early, was splitting in this backfield that was expected to be a running back by committee. This week has 13 of the 22 running back carries from this. Actually, that's not even true. I think Berrios had a couple of them as well. So if we're talking about true running back carries, Michael Carter is now starting to dominate that, at least in this game, dominate that share. And so moving forward, like, am I going to start Michael Carter next week? No. Absolutely not. But if I have that bench spot again where I can drop a Quez Watkins or someone who's really not contributing and I'm not even going to play in a bye week anyway, it's kind of just a roster spot. If Michael Carter's available, pick him up. If not, potentially just, kind of throwing him in a trade offer of like, you know what, and give me this M. Carter guy.
Take the free squares when you can. I think that's a great idea. Let's move on here to your Chiefs and the Eagles. 42-30 Chiefs get the dub. We knew they weren't going to lose 3 in a row. Unfortunately, Jordan, comes to the expense of your Eagles here. Tyreek Hill, 186 and 3 touchdowns on 11 catches. Jalen Hurts, 387 and 2. Looked very good. Mahomes does his thing, does throw another pick, and then a quiet day for Travis Kelce. This is something, I mean, obviously you're not fading Kelce. If anything, go try to get him, but you won't be able to. I've been trying all day. That being said, this is just the case that everybody has a game or two like this. Don't sweat it. You'll be just fine. That being said, the Chiefs and the Bills play next week. The Buffalo Bills and Matt Milano in the middle, very good against tight ends. You play Travis Kelce with confidence every single week. However, we had a question about CEH earlier, or Cordero Patterson. CEH had another good game in this one, over 100 and a score. 2 scores. If Travis Kelce is getting bottled up a little bit, double covered, whatever, Tyreek Hill is going to go nuts, and then CEH is going to have a better game out of the backfield as well. I would expect that again from CEH with the Bills coming up, because I think they'll bottle up Kelce again. Just a hunch there. Thoughts on Eagles and Chiefs?
Not too many. I mean, this game was essentially what I had expected. I mean, actually, the Eagles' offense was actually a little bit better than I was expecting. Obviously, the Chiefs' defense isn't anything to write home about, but I mean, all the pieces look good here on both sides.
All right, we do have a question here regarding the Chiefs. I'm going to bring that up now. Rucker Smith 101 on Twitch. Appreciate all the Twitch love. We got a lot of folks streaming in on Twitch lately. Really appreciate everybody coming in. So thank you. Make sure to subscribe here to the channel on Twitch, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter if you're catching us live. Thank you very much. And you can catch us after the fact. If you ask a question and have to dip out, we don't get to it, we'll also stream all of these the next day on podcasts. So make sure to hit us up, Candlestick Kids, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Jordan, should I trade Patterson, Moore? I'm assuming it's DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Patterson, DJ Moore, and Kareem Hunt for Tyreek Hill in PPR. I would get Hill. Once again, Patterson, DJ Moore, and Hunt for Hill in PPR. This is a big boy trade.
Yeah, it is. And if you're listening to the podcast tomorrow and not watching right now on YouTube or Twitch, really love the Lord Farquaad profile picture there out of Rucker Smith. I mean, this is really like a context trade. I mean, obviously, DJ Moore has been, I think right now he's like the wide receiver 4 on the
Unbelievable.
season. He has been the guy in that Carolina offense, especially with Christian McCaffrey out. But even when McCaffrey was there, I mean, Moore's been completely fine. And so, yes, you are obviously getting an upgrade in Tyreek Hill. DJ Moore is not Tyreek Hill. But that said, I mean, to give up both Patterson and Kareem Hunt to make that upgrade, only if you have the running back depth to make that move would I do it. If I'm starting either Hunt or Patterson, I mean, after those two, if those are your 2 and 3 running backs on your team, like who's left for you? Like who else is on your team? Would I trade those 2 away and have to start Brandon Bolden just to upgrade to Tyreek Hill? No.
Yeah, I actually totally agree with you here. And I hate to turn away Tyreek Hill, obviously. But we saw that, look, the last 2 weeks, man, Tyreek Hill was completely bottled up, right, by good defenses. And the Bills are a good secondary next week. He might get bottled up again. So you may be able to get him a little bit cheaper next week. I would hold on to DJ Moore. Patterson's playing well. So is Hunt. I'd hold all 3 of those if you're stacked at running back and we don't know it, then sure, go ahead. If you're not, though, and you have to play these guys anyway, I would not do this trade. Okay, let's move on here to our next game here. Cardinals and the Rams, both undefeated coming into this. The Cardinals get out with a huge win here, remain the only undefeated team in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. How about that? 4-0 for the Cardinals. The Rams suffer their first loss, 37-20. Cardinals dominated this game. James Conner, 2 touchdowns in this one, 4 touchdowns in his last 2 games. Chase Edmonds, 12 carries, 120 total yards. Van Jefferson, 6 catches, 90 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp held in check, no touchdown. Robert Woods catches a late touchdown. Nuke Hopkins being outpaced by A.J. Green again, over 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns for him as well. Kyler Murray's Kyler Murray. Matt Stafford, a dud game, but he's a beast, usually moving forward. A lot of fireworks here, but listen to these names. James Conner, Van Jefferson, right? A.J. Green. These are guys that we're not usually starting, but maybe we can moving forward with these 2 potent offenses.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Van Jefferson's the tough one for me where I think anyone in this Rams offense could have this type of a day, right? It could be Higbee. It could be obviously Kupp, Woods, or Van Jefferson. And it could be Deshaun Jackson even. And so I guess the issue with Van Jefferson and some of the pieces of this Rams offense is this going to be the week where they get you those 15 PPR points and score a touchdown or 2? Or is this the week they go 2 for 12? And outside of Cooper Kupp, I mean, hopefully Woods gets it on track, but Really, there hasn't been much consistency there from the Rams. The other thing to look for that on the other side of the ball this game, you mentioned the James Conner 2 touchdowns, but Chase Edmonds right now is the running back 12 in PPR format, and still has not scored a touchdown. A running back is 12th in the league without scoring any touchdowns in a PPR format. That is insane. The touchdowns will come for Chase Edmonds. If they will be next week, if they will be in week 8, at some point, Chase Edmonds is going to find his way into the end zone. This offense is too prolific and too powerful for him not to. And so if he's, putting up RB12 numbers without any touchdowns, if you can go buy Chase Edmonds, especially this is now the back-to-back weeks where James Conner scored the touchdowns, could be worrisome to the Chase Edmonds owner. I'd go out and buy Chase Edmonds.
Yeah, I would too, because we see it a lot of times. I mean, there's a lot of running backs that have a great value in PPR that don't score a lot of touchdowns. I would go ahead and get that guy as well. Let's move on to the Seahawks and my Niners. 28-21, tough loss for the Niners. Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured in this one, avoids they thought it might be a torn Achilles, popped Achilles there at the beginning. It's not. So they're going to hold him out this week. It'll be Trey Lance. Then they have a bye week in week 6. We'll see how Trey Lance does and who comes out of it in week 7 as they get going here. But Trey Lance comes out in the second half, 7 rushing attempts for 40 yards. Just rushing attempts, that's a lot of work in just one half. If you extrapolate that, as I did on yesterday's episode, 14 carries for 80 yards, hypothetically, in a game, rushing only, I mean, that's Jalen Hurts at least, right? So we'd love to see that, plus the passing ability. Deebo Samuel stays hot, 8 catches, 156, and 2 touchdowns. A lot of that came on another blown coverage. I don't know why they don't pay attention to this guy. That's 2 this season. Blown coverage, 76-yard touchdown, yards. DK, 65 yards and a touchdown. Lockett held in check, but he did have that injury 2 weeks ago. Not quite worried about him or Russell Wilson. Chris Carson did not practice today. It's Tuesday with a neck injury. Keep an eye on that. Alex Collins looked pretty good, to be honest, and he's been on the Seahawks about 7 times. He's kind of the Ricky Henderson of the Seahawks, which is odd, but he's making it happen. So keep an eye on that. If Carson misses, I would like to stream Alex Collins if I need to. I'm okay to start Trey Lance in a single quarterback league if you're streaming.
Yeah, I absolutely am, because of that rushing floor that you mentioned. I mean, that was the basis of my take of Jalen Hurts becoming the QB1, but he's the QB3 right now. But those mobile quarterbacks with that rushing floor in fantasy it's hard to disappoint. I mean, we go back to Hurts' game against your 49ers. In terms of touchdowns and scoring, I mean, terrible game. Still put up 20 fantasy points. Mm-hmm. And so guys that have that rushing floor generally are not going to hurt you. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit harder to predict with a rookie quarterback. I understand that. But Lance in this 49ers offense is pretty good. And the other thing to look forward to is Deebo's obviously been the one so far. Ayuk seems to be in Shanahan's doghouse. Mm-hmm. For what reason? I don't know. But Deebo also still seemed to be the favorite target of Trey Lance when Lance came in that second half. And so any worries if you are the Deebo Samuel owner, if he would potentially fall off with Trey Lance at quarterback, at least from a target perspective, should be okay.
Yeah, George Kittle was also targeted heavily in this game, but couldn't come down with the touchdown that hit him in the hands. Ross Dwelly, the backup tight end, caught one early. Everybody thought it was Kittle. It wasn't. I am nervous about Kittle, but I'm not panicking. He's still Kittle. It's still the tight end. He hasn't even had a good week yet, and he's the tight end 6. So just hold tight on George Kittle. 2 games left here, Jordan. Let's power him out. Ravens, Broncos. Ravens, big win here. 23-7 over the Broncos, previously undefeated. But as we had mentioned multiple times, they had yet to really play anybody of significance. They go up against the Ravens. The Ravens run them out. Teddy did get hurt in this game. Drew Lock comes in. Yikes. I'm not excited about Drew Lock. Latavius Murray does lead this backfield, 18 carries, 59 yards, and a touchdown. We talked about him a little bit earlier. Marquise Brown, 4 for 91 and a touchdown. We know that he could have had a massive game 2 weeks ago until Rashad Bateman comes in, which could be even this week. Then I'm okay with Marquise Goodwin. Lamar Jackson, 316 and a touchdown as well for the Broncos. This run game still 50-50. I've been starting Javonte Williams as my running back 3 in a league all year long, and I've been fine with it. It's just a matter of time for him. But Melvin Gordon playing well to his credit, And without an injury, I don't see them going away from 50-50 here.
No, I don't either. Short of an injury, or if they're ever, kind of just out of the playoff race, maybe then getting Javonte more work. Obviously, with a 3-1 record, it doesn't seem like that's coming soon. But you look back to who they played in the first 3 weeks, and maybe they string together a couple losses here. But I mean, in terms of fantasy production, the Ravens used to be a reliable backfield, and you could start one, if not both, of those running backs. Tyson Williams is a healthy scratch and inactive. They're giving the ball to Le'Veon Bell off the practice squad. I don't know what to do with this backfield. I don't want any parts of it. I don't want to start Latavius Murray. But again, I mean, even though it was the last play of the game and a little cheap, they have now rushed for 100 yards as a team for, what is it now, 46?
43.
43 straight games. They'll get to 46. But the sad part is for fantasy that's mostly Lamar.
Yep. Either way, quite impressive. And there was some controversy with Fangio and Harbaugh after the game in the presser. I'll let y'all dig that up. But nonetheless, they get that record and continue to move on against the Steelers. Okay, let's get it. Steelers and Packers here. Man, Steelers can't put it together here. Packers get a big win, 27-17. Randall Cobb back in Green Bay, for anybody that's been under a rock here. Back in Green Bay, 2 tutties in this one. Deontay Johnson missed, injured a couple weeks ago, comes back, 9 catches, 92 yards and a touchdown, absolutely peppered constantly, double-digit targets in 3 of his 4 games this year. He is going to be absolutely peppered always as long as Big Ben is in there. Najee Harris, nice volume, scores a late touchdown. Devontae, held in check-ish, just 60 yards here, but he's going to be just fine moving forward. Aaron Jones as well. The Packers defense just really impressed here, and they didn't need to necessarily run it up. So I'm okay with everybody here in this game. Still worried about the Steelers, Deontay Johnson, Najee Harris. I'm good with Chase Claypool out in this game. Juju, meh. I think that's about it for this game. I mean, you start your studs, Deontay, Najee, Adams, Jones, Rodgers. Tunyon, I'm fading. Randall Cobb, no thank you. Juju, I'll pass as well. Can't trust the tight ends. And Packers DST might be more legit than we gave him credit for early in the season.
Yeah, I think that first week 1 matchup against the Saints where they gave up 38 points.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But neither team has played. The Saints haven't been that good, and the Packers haven't been that bad since.
And that's why you don't overreact to week 1 in fantasy. But pretty much this is no one really kind of breaking out here. Claypool obviously out, probably helped Deontay a little bit in terms of target volume, but like you mentioned, Deontay is going to be Big Ben's guy. Him and Najee are going to see a ton of targets, especially late in games when the Steelers team seems to be losing a lot late. AJ Dillon was involved a little bit more and almost to the level that we had expected preseason, but I think that also might be just more of a factor of how not close this game was late. But moving forward, if the Packers are in a plus matchup, maybe just keep an eye on AJ Dillon and his usage going forward. But for the most part, it's Adams, it's Jones, and it's Rodgers.
I absolutely agree. Want to give a shout out before we get out of here once again to our friends at the Jersey Jungle. Check them out at the Jersey Jungle. And Bomb Banana Hot Sauce. Banana based, not banana flavored. 10% off of your order at seekthespice.com. Bomb Banana Hot Sauce, banana based, not banana flavored. Once again, I want everyone to go and check us out. And we have mentioned this earlier, and I appreciate Mr. Jones bringing it up. We are live on Twitch as well. We mentioned streaming live on YouTube on the graphic here because that's where the super chat function is, and that's what helps all of you jump to the front of the line with your question. The reality is we get hundreds of questions, literally hundreds of questions over 3 hours. We get about 20 minutes, 25 minutes behind schedule. So sometimes people say, hey, man, did you get my question? They answer it 3-4 times to see if we'll catch it. The reality is we're behind. If you'd like to jump the line, we get to all the questions, but if you want to jump the line, you can flip us a contribution that helps the channel grow, which we appreciate, and we will get right to your question, whether it's $1, whether it's $30, we will get right to your question. So we appreciate that on the super chat via YouTube. So create a YouTube account with your Gmail account, jump in there with us. If you're on Twitch and you'd like to contribute, though, feel free to hit up our Venmo at TCK Pod, TCK POD on Venmo, and you can flip us a couple bucks there and also give us your question, and we'll get right to it in real time. So appreciate you. Hit us up every Sunday morning, 3 hours before kickoff. My man, Jay Della, getting it done once again here with the Week 4 breakdown and the Week 5 previews. Make sure you check out Jordan on Twitter, J Della Valley with an E, not a Y, and the number 7, and myself as well, Sky Guasco, and check out the Candlestick Kids Fantasy Football Podcast anywhere you listen to the Believe podcast networks and podcasts in general. All episodes of the Candlestick Kids are brought to you by Bet Online and the Believe Podcast Network. Make sure to subscribe and give us a like on all of the fantasy focus networks, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Jordan, before we get out of here, my man, best of luck to the Sox. I'm looking forward to catching you hopefully in a couple of weeks, my man. Enjoy the rest of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Up 3-0 so far. Valdi looks good through 5. Starting to feel good.
Explain that picture behind you very quickly before we get out of here. It is so on point for right now.
Yeah, it's always up, but if it wasn't always up, it definitely would have been. It's Jason Varitek and A-Rod. A-Rod, I think, got brushed back a little bit, might have gotten hit with a pitch. Didn't take it too kindly, wanted to cry about it. So Varitek had to put him in his place. Very iconic moment for the MLB at large, but definitely for Red Sox fans and our hatred for A-Rod and the Yankees.
Best American League rivalry in baseball, Red Sox-Yankees. Best National League rivalry, Giants and Dodgers. Looking forward to it, man. Always great in baseball when all 4 teams are in the postseason, as they are. Best of luck to your Sox, brother. We'll get back to this again real soon. For Jordan Della Valle, I'm Sky Guasco. We are out of here.